ورحمة الله وبركاته. صباح الخير. مرحبا بكم وشكرا لكم لحضوركم. It is a great pleasure to be here with you, public in presence and public at home, and to bring the greetings of His Excellency Nicola Lehner, Ambassador of Italy to the UAE. Our embassy is really proud to be partner in this important cultural event, an exhibition testifying once more to the Sharjah's commitment to culture and to the United Arab Emirates' leading role in the preservation and promotion of Arab and Islamic culture. Giovanni Curatola, an outstanding scholar, who also honors me as a dear friend, for inventing and curating this exhibition, an exhibition that proves the fruitful cooperation between Italy and the UAE, and that vividly represents the importance of water in history, while prompting us to reflect on the importance of water in our times. Actually, our two countries are also at the forefront in the field of research into water resources, into the innovative techniques for their transformation, and their role in the field of energy transition. I will immediately leave the floor to our welcome guest speakers, Professor Giovanni Curatola, Professor Alberto Tiraferri, and last but not least, of course, Professor Tarek Merabtin. Each of them will add a few words to introduce themselves. Please, Giovanni.
You hear me fine? Thank you very much, Ida, for your kind introduction. And I'm very happy to be here. Already said how much happy I am to be here. And I have half an hour time. And I could spend the half an hour time just telling names of the people who worked with us and of the team, who was the local team and our team, which was a sort of brotherhood in a way. I really, really appreciated this way of working together, because we started this exhibition 2 years ago. We had a pandemic, but anyway, it's there. I will make short comments about the exhibition. I have a PowerPoint which I hope that is going to be shown. So please, you can start with my PowerPoint, which is, I don't know where it is, anyway. And, yes, I will have few, yes, this is from the beginning, start here, and it's fine. It's coming, fine. Then I will do some thing to go on. Oh, we have this, which I don't know how to work it. If I do this, oh no, this is just to, and then it's here, no, where? I say you go on, yes. Yeah, you can do it, fantastic. Sorry. I'm an art man. I'm not a technological man. I cannot work with this kind of thing. Anyway, you have the poster of the exhibition. Yes, no, go back. Yes, and talking about water, about all these kind of things. Now we can have the first slide. Yes, I want to talk about environment. And we can see. Yes, please. We can see this human place. I have done this picture many years ago in the Wadi Rum Valley in Jordan, and at the time, it was much more complicated to make things because we didn't have mobile telephone. So you were taking a picture and then went back to home. You were printing it, and so I discovered it was a very nice picture, by the way. So I'm very proud to show you these pictures and some other things. And I have to ask to Ida to stop me when my time is finished, because I can go on talking all the afternoon and the day after. So please stop me and say your time is over. So can we see the next one, which is water? Yes. This is the Caspian Sea, and you have these animals, just to show that we must think about the water and the beach and animals, and we are animals as well. And going on, the next one is a dramatic place in Eastern Anatolia, Eastern Turkey. And I like it very much because you have the water, you have the mountains, and you have a little green. And in the little green means that you have a village, a small village, and human people living there. The next one is the struggle of this little tree with sand. The sand is coming, the sand is, quite well, the problem of sand around you and how to control the sand coming, and also this little poor tree which tries to live, and of course a stream of water. Water is everywhere. Next one is, again, is the dramatic place, which I like very much. In a way I can say I discovered this place in the 80s, late 80s. It is in Iran. It is in Iran. It's called Behistan. The first time I arrived in this place, I could not cross the river because there was not a boat and so on. The second time I crossed it with a horse, but so. And you see this is dramatic on the left side, the Kiziluzan River. You have this big thing on the left, and you can see that there are some things like stairs or something, and behind what you see on the left, on the right side bottom, there is an entire village and grottos, and the place is very interesting because there was a Mongolian Ilkhanid civilizations, and they were at the time not yet Muslim. So probably this place, very protected by the water, it was a Buddhist monastery. So that is quite interesting. Go on, please. And India. Can we forget India? No. And, again, a little lake and the tree in the middle. And another Indian image is in amber. The next one, please. And here you have a garden. This is something which we have seen, which is in our exhibition. We have a little garden to be shown. The next one is a miniature, again, Jamiat Tawarikh Rashid ad-Din, and is dated 1314, just to show that water has been always portrayed and always is part of the Islamic feeling with arts, and so on. Go on, please. And again, this is dramatic. I like it so much. I like it so much. Of course, it's autumn. You have these trees, the yellow, the things, and so on, and this dramatic, windy, and clouds on the top. And again, the stream of water coming down. This is going much, in a way, seriously. This is a quotation from Ibn Arabi, which is, you know, a very, very important philosopher. Why I have put this slide here? Because it says, you know, that God, when made the first man, Adam, and then with a little clay, he made the palm tree, the date palm tree. And so, in philosophy, the palm tree is the owned of ourself. And why I have put this one? Because I am ambitious. I want to launch another exhibition we can do here about the palm tree, the date palm tree, and the palmette decoration. And you have the palm tree in your flag. You have, I mean, why not thinking of something which has to do with, again, the palm tree, Islamic decoration. I have written probably 1 million of times the word palmette decoration in my studies. And I think that could be a suggestion. So now we go on in looking at again, this is a manuscript which is kept in the National Museum of Turkish and Islamic Art in Istanbul. It's dated 1398. Is a divan, is an anthology, and has very, very nice decoration with the stream of water and all these trees. And these trees are different trees. You see, you have cypress trees, you have trees which are in blossom, you have trees, you have, of course, a palm tree with dates, and you have also trees which have fruits, and different fruits, different period of the blossoming of the tree. You have trees which are in winter, depicted, in summer, in, of course, spring, and in autumn. Is it possible? No. No, it's not possible. You don't have at the same time all this blossom of trees. Why? Because this is a miniature without time. Or, if you prefer, is the time of God. God has all the time. The Almighty has all the time. We are little things in the time. And this shows the idea of in a way of the paradise, because in the paradise there is no time, there is light and this kind of beautiful garden. So please, now we come to a very quick tour of this exhibition. I refrain to tell too many things because I think that the exhibition should speak by itself. If you appreciate, I will be very glad, because it has been a big work from a lot of people. If you criticize, we will be very happy as well, because it's important to have different point of views. I know that this is our team point of view and our team, our idea. We can have different ideas, but I am really happy of what we have done. So we have 4 main sections. The first section is about religion, and we are going through the gallery, and the wonderful work has been done by all the team working and fixing the objects. So this the first section, then we will be back with some objects. Yes, so this is, and again, very, very, I mean, we have, I think, 120 objects, you know, and when I go through this exhibition, I found myself at home. I say, yes, that is the idea we had about this kind of thing. And really, what is so gratifying for a scholar, a curator of an exhibition, is having something in mind. You have something in mind, and this, what you have in mind, is translated into facts by a teamwork, working all together. So I'm really grateful to the people who was able to show in a way my thought and our thought in an exhibition. So, which has a tale. Always I insist that an exhibition must have a tale, a theme, something to tell. And here we have the everyday life things, I mean water, and we have several objects which are in this museum, but which are in the different contexts in the galleries, and we use to explain something. As I said, we can try maybe to do it with the palmette design, maybe not the same objects, but it's possible. And please, this is the famous, the big kilga coming from Palermo, and this is, you know, heavy objects which now are not so heavy when they are in a showcase and you look at them and you become familiar with these objects. And the next section is a purple section, as you can see, and I had the agreement of the staff and the direction of this museum. I am a rather colored man, and the colors on the walls, you know, bright colors. It's nice. You find yourself at home. You find yourself in a beautiful thing, and then they are not prevailing on the objects. The objects are respected, and they speak their language, so you can see most of them. If we go on, here we have the last section about the garden. So we have the fragment of a garden. We have the fountain from Ghazni in Afghanistan, where the Ghaznavid Empire was acting in the 12th century, and again we have different places also from the provenance of the objects. The large tile on the center of the screen now comes from Multan, which is now in Pakistan, is Indian, and again the idea of the flower, of the water, which is so essential in our life. So I am going on. Of course, we started with the Holy Quran and remarkable piece, remarkable manuscript, Mamluk period, which is in this museum. And again, the carpet, the idea of paradise, we've talked about many times. You know, I am talking about the exhibition, introducing the exhibition, but the real serious things is the two chaps which are on my side. I'm joking. I am trying to do poetry. Then they will talk about water, what it needs, water he is drinking, yes, of course, and that is what we need to have. I mean, I can play with poetry. They have to play with reality. And so when they will come on the screen, I'm sure we will learn so much. This is the symbol of the entrance to the exhibition, so I have put it to show, to remember the exhibition, and this jacket is an Islamic piece, very nice, and go on. And yes, now we have to to jugs, metalwork. Metalwork is not easy to work. You know, it's the tradition of metalwork. Again, we can make and planning another exhibition. I want to make exhibitions. I like to make exhibitions. I like to come back here and to have another project and to enjoy to your food, your company, your everything. I mean, I feel myself at home. I mean, I have no problem. I mean, no, go back one moment. So I'm late. I am in time. It's fine. Yes, because I said metalwork. These objects were so admired even in the Western world. We had silversmiths and other people who was absolutely good. I come from a region which is Florence, so I am, you know, coming from the Renaissance place, and the Medici family was very important, and they made, 3 years ago, I had the chance of doing, I said this is the last exhibition I was thinking, and I was lying, of course, in my town in Florence about Florence and Islam and the Renaissance family. And Lorenzo the Magnificent was so fond of Islamic metalwork, he had, at the end of his experience, he died in 1492, he had 120 masterpieces of Islamic metalwork. He had carpets and that, but 120, because we have his inventory. And it's written Islamic, 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 Islamic. And how much he paid for this. What today will be millions of euro or dollars. So he was a keen, how you say, collector. Why? He had the best artisans, but these objects, with the workmanship was absolutely outstanding. The balance with the writing, with the inscriptions, and the decoration, geometrical, the arabesque, the figures, outstanding. So he said, I like these things. Yes, but it comes from far away, they are infidel. Don't care. Beauty is beauty. Beauty is the best ambassador. Exhibitions are beauty, and beauty is ambassador of knowledge and friendship. Yeah, this everyday life, again, you have filters which, so you don't have flying going inside and always asked myself how they could clean then, if someone was going inside, how to get it out. Anyway, they didn't have this problem. And we go, yes, we had a little section about fishes, you know, and the decoration of fish and the sun, light and water, and the fishes, which is go around the sun, and this is a metal object, quite nice. Well, I have to, this is not Alhambra vase, original Alhambra vase. There are very few in the world, and it's very difficult to obtain them. But the idea of how much water was kept inside these kind of things is to me, in my opinion, very, very, very nice. So we had a short view of what we have here, and we can look again at the panel I quoted before, Multan, and look at the flowers. When you see this kind of thing, you don't need air conditioning. The air conditioning is in the object. It's refreshing. It's really refreshing to look at the garden. Even if you are in the heat of the desert, you need to have a carpet or something which have flowers and which have the water, of course. And I think I have this from Torino, And sometimes we have very nice pieces, like this one, which was in stores, in storage. And I visit, of course, several times Torino and all the foundation and all the colleagues which are in Torino, and they said, we have this object. I said, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. It's a pity that it's in a storage. I said, we have so many things. Yes, but we need to show them to the, in a way, to the world. And again, this is a portrait they have done of myself, dressed as an Oriental Sultan. And that is just to thank you very much for your attention. And thank you very much for all the help and all the things I have done together with you. I am representing a big team which is behind me. Ideally, all of them have contributed much more than what I have done. And so I'm proud to say that a team is what has done the exhibition, not a single person, a real good team, an incredible good team, and to them, really, my deepest gratitude and my love forever. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Giovanni Curatola. Thank you for being so generous in your speeches, so well learned, but also so easy to follow. I think I share with the public my impression. And thank you also for mentioning beauty, which gives me the opportunity to remind that, as you may know, Beauty Connects People is exactly the theme of the Italian Pavilion in Dubai, Expo Dubai 2020. It's my pleasure now to give the floor to Professor Alberto Tiraferri from the renowned university, outstanding University Politecnico of Torino. Please, Alberto.
Can you hear me? Yeah? No? Some people say yes. Okay. Yeah? Yeah? Okay. So we will switch gears quite a bit. I will try to move here and to use the PowerPoint from here. Thank you for the invitation. It's an honor. Thank you. I want to thank the Italian Cultural Institute and the Sharjah Museums Authority. My name is Alberto Tiraferri. I'm Associate Professor of Environmental Engineering in Italy at Politecnico di Torino. So I will talk about science to you. And I will talk about water in the EU. And I want to focus on something that we are working as a research group. And
Alberto, you have
stay here.
I should stay there. Okay.
No, it's okay. But just do record the
Here.
Yeah.
Don't cover myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Something that we work as a research group as a university a lot, which is water desalination. I will give you some curiosity and technical details about water because that will help us understand some things about desalination. So water is a very small molecule. It's about 0.2 nanometers in size. It means that if you take a soccer ball and fill it with water, there will be 10 to the power of 27 water molecules inside, which means a billion of a billion of a billion water molecules. Incidentally, our body also consists of 10 to the power of 27 molecules in total. Of these, 99% is water, which represents about 55% in weight. So this leads me to sometimes to some existential identity problems. Sometimes I don't know if I'm more Alberto Tiraferri or if I'm more water. Sometimes I think I'm just a way for water to transport itself from one place to another. Generally, an adult like myself needs about 3 liters per day of water as an intake to survive, to and to thrive as an organism, and female adults need about 2.5 liters of water per day. So this is the water molecule. It consists of 3 atoms, 2 hydrogen atoms, HH, and an oxygen atom. Why am I presenting it? I'm presenting it because it's non-symmetrical. And this non-symmetry relates to a lot to desalination, because the fact that it's non-symmetrical basically results in the fact that there is a slightly positive electric charge on one side and a slightly negative electric charge on the other side. And this, as shown in this slide, makes water a very, very good solvent, also for salt, among other things. This is a blessing, and this is a curse. It's a blessing because we can dissolve many things in water. So sugars, proteins, vitamins, and water is used by our organisms to transport these things in our body and to nourish ourselves. However, we can also dissolve salt, and once salt is dissolved, it's very difficult to remove it from water. And salt dissolves because of this imbalance in charge. Salt is basically ions, so ions are charged. So the positive ions, like sodium, they like to stick to or interact with the negative part of the water, because as you know, positive things and negative things like to interact with each other. And chloride ions, they interact with the positive side of water. So they create this strong interaction. Water is good as a solvent, but also once this interaction is in place, it's very difficult to separate the two things. Now, let's talk about water scarcity just a little bit. This is a map showing water scarcity according to the UN, and you can see that the brown regions are the regions that are considered water scarce, and they coincide with basically the tropics, and the United Arab Emirates are part of this region. Now, if we look at the 17 Sustainable Development Goals of the UN, there is one that's related to water. It's number 6. So that actually mentions water, which is provide clean water and sanitation to the entire population. That's Sustainable Development Goal number 6. However, if we look at all 17 of them, they are all more or less directly related to water, in my opinion. So let's take, for example, zero hunger, number 2, provide food for the entire population. How can we make food without water? Actually, water is used mostly for irrigation and agriculture everywhere in the world. But also there's others that don't seem to be related to water, but they actually are. For example, number 4, provide quality education to the entire population. There are many regions in the world where kids cannot get education because they need to help out their families and walk 2 hours to the nearest well to go get water. If they had water available, they would be able to spend more time for quality education. So we could make an argument for all the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and my hypothesis is that water is the necessary goal to obtain to achieve all of 17 of them. What about water in the EU and in Italy? According to the European Union, every person in Europe every day needs about 275 liters of water for the overall economic development and well-being of the population. This doesn't just include the water that we use at home, all the water that we use for agriculture and by industry for the economic development of the Union. In Italy, this number is higher, is 418 liters per person per day. It's one of the highest in the world, actually, because there's a lot of agriculture in Italy, and also because of a problem that I will show you in the next slide. So this is the portion of water that's used in Europe. 60% for agriculture that's consumed in Europe, 60% for agriculture, 30% by the industry, and about 10% at home by the people for residential uses. This is another way to plot the same data. So 217 liters per day per person in the EU, 418 in Italy. You see that this is the average in the world. So the average in Europe is consistent with the average in the world. Italy uses more water. But what I want to focus your attention on is this pink portion of the bar, which is the water that is lost. So actually, not all the water that is consumed is actually used by the people. We treat in Italy 418 liters per person per day, but actually more than 30% of it is lost in the distribution due to obsolescence of the infrastructure. And this is a big problem, okay? So we need to do something about this. Now, sorry, the writing is small, but I can talk to you, and I will explain everything that's in the slide. There are challenges and opportunities related to this. Let's start with the red part, the challenges. One is scarcity of renewable resources. Renewable resources are related to basically precipitation, which is basically what replenishes our resources. And the scarcity is also due and exacerbated by climate change, because precipitation are becoming more and more localized, both spatially and temporally. So it rains more in the wet regions, less in the arid regions, and it rains by more by heavy storms and less by diffuse rain. So it's more difficult to tap on water, on precipitation. There's depletion of noble freshwater resources like groundwater, which are becoming more and more contaminated and more salty. Also, we need to face the fact that the population is growing, so water needs will also grow, also because the less developed part of the world is developing, and it needs more water for their agriculture and their industry. Now there are opportunities. First of all, we are reducing consumption, and this is a good thing. We are doing relatively good job in this. When I mean consumption, when I talk about consumption, I mean consumption per person per day. We are also improving infrastructure, but probably these two things together will not be able to alone provide safe, clean water to the entire population in the future. So we also need to do another thing, which is use less conventional resources for our drinking water. And I'm talking about, so today we use mostly lake water, river water, and groundwater. So fresh water resources, we take this water, we treat it, and we make it available for the people. But in the future, and also we are already doing it partly, we need to tap on unconventional resources. These are high salinity resources like seawater, and we need to do water reuse, which means our wastewater, the water that we use, not just discharge it, but treat it, purify it to be able to use it again. So recycle water, basically. So let's focus on desalination. Desalination capacity is increasing exponentially over the years. So this is a graph showing the amount of water that's desalinated in the world between the 90s and 2020. And you see that basically is growing exponentially. And this is a map showing the capacity of desalination in different countries. So you see that the countries that exploit desalination the most today are the United States. By far, the largest one is Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates also are doing quite a bit of desalination. This is another map showing the location of the desalination plants in 2018, where there were about 16,000 operational desalination plants in the world. 48% of the total world capacity for desalination was and is still located in the North African and Middle Eastern region. 14% of the total world capacity for desalination was located in the United Arab Emirates. What about Italy and the EU? We do very little desalination yet, because there is no such water scarcity yet in Europe, or at least not that perception of it. So we're still 99.3% of our water still comes from freshwater resources, lake water, river water, groundwater. Only 0.5% from water reuse, only 0.2% from desalination. Now these numbers are a bit different for the southern countries in Europe, like Italy and Spain and Greece, because water scarcity is a bit more important in the southern region. So for example, in Italy, water reuse accounts for about 5–10% of the total water consumption, and desalination to about 1%. By far, the country that uses desalination the most in Europe is Spain. In Spain, there are about 700 desalination plants that can basically provide clean water for 20% of its population, about 8 million people. This number is much lower for Italy, Again, 1% only of the total water comes from desalination, and it's even smaller for Cyprus and Greece. For all the other countries, it's basically negligible. There is no desalination done in the northern European countries. However, it makes sense to do desalination for different reasons, and in this slide, I'm just summarizing two of these reasons. These two squares represent where the people are located in the world. The pink square, people living away from the coast, and the green square, people living within 100 kilometers from a coast. So you see that about 40%, about almost half of the population in the world live within 100 kilometers from a coast. So it would make sense probably to intake seawater and treat it to make fresh water, drinking water. The graphs on the right show the proportion of fresh water, the small light blue dot, compared to the resources of high salinity water on Earth. So on Earth, there is very little fresh water and a lot of salt water. Fresh water is, again, lake water, river water, groundwater, and ice. And saline water is mostly represented by the oceans. Now, this ratio, which is already hugely in favor of high salinity water, is probably going to increase disproportionately in the future with climate change, where we're going to lose most of our ice. Okay, so and we have also salinization of many of our freshwater resources. So it probably makes sense to take a little bit less of this very small dot and a little bit more of this large dot to make water available for our population. Seawater is composed of water and salt. If we take 1 kilogram of seawater, most of it is water. You see 99.6% of it is water, and only 3.5% of it in weight is salt. So there's little salt in seawater, but this little salt is very difficult to separate from water. Most of this salt is chloride and sodium, like I showed you in one of the first slides. We have two main techniques to do desalination. One is distillation. So what we do is we take seawater, we boil it, we have water evaporates, only pure water evaporates, salt remains in the liquid water, and then the vapor is fresh water. We can recover it as liquid water and drink it. But the second technique is called reverse osmosis. So we take seawater, a high-tech filter, we squeeze water at high pressure across this filter. This filter is able to let water go through and not salt. So on the other side, we recover fresh water. It takes a lot of energy to do the separation. It takes always a lot of time, efforts, energy, and cost to separate things rather than mixing them. So let's think about, we have a bunch of Smarties with different colors. And if I ask you to separate them by colors, it takes some time and effort to separate them. If I ask you to mix them, it takes 1 second to just mix them up. Imagine you are painting and you have oil painting, one blue and yellow color, and I ask you to make green. You just mix the two, it's very easy, and you take green. Now I challenge you, once you have green, to again make yellow and blue out of that. It's possible theoretically. You would have to take one molecule one by one and separate the yellow from the blue. It takes a lot of efforts. So it takes a lot of efforts to separate water from salt once they are mixed. And this graph represents the energy that we need for desalination. This is the energy that we need for desalination using reverse osmosis, the technique on the right-hand side in the previous slide. This is the energy that we need for thermal desalination, so distillation, compared to the energy that we need to treat our conventional water resources. So basically, if we take surface water like lake or river water, it takes basically zero energy compared to what it takes to produce fresh water from high salinity sources. This is the main problem of desalination. It takes about 6 kilowatt hours to produce 1 cubic meter of water from desalination using reverse osmosis, and about 25 kilowatt hours to produce 1 cubic meter of water. What does that mean? 1 kilowatt hours is what I, as a 65 kilogram adult male, spend to run for 45 minutes. 1 kilowatt hours. So to make 1 cubic meter, which is enough to produce drinking water for about 2.5 people in Italy every day, I would have to run for 4.5 hours. That's the energy that I would have to spend. Or it's 1 kilowatt hours is also equivalent to the energy that's inside 1/3 of the food that I eat every day, okay? So to make a cubic meter of water, which is enough for 2.5 people in Italy every day, I would have to eat for 2 days. That's the equivalent of the energy in food for 2 days. So it's a lot of energy, actually. Now, there's other problems related to desalination, not just the energy, environmental impacts. You see in this picture, this is a nice, really nice coast with sea of beautiful color, turquoise color, and you see desalination plants over there. So there's problems with greenhouse gas emissions because of the energy required, but also problems related to land use. So if we talk about large-scale desalination, we're talking about industrial plants. So we need to be aware of what we're going to do with our land and about our coastal development. I'm not saying, I'm not giving judgment here, I'm just telling you that we need to think about this. Also, there's other problems related to the intake of seawater, which is a little bit dangerous for marine life, and the fact that if we take 1 liter of seawater, we don't produce 1 liter of fresh water, we produce about half a liter of it, and then we produce half a liter of waste, which is very concentrated water. And we need to do something with it, and normally what we do is we discharge it back into the ocean, and this is also a little bit dangerous for marine life. Now, these two things, we are working on it. We have techniques to reduce these impacts. But we need to be aware that those are also issues related to desalination. Now, I'll talk to you mostly about the problems. Let's talk about the solutions. There's a great opportunity in using renewable energy for desalination, which we're not really doing yet today. So if we compare again the map of water scarcity and we compare it with the map of solar irradiance, they almost match exactly. So we can use probably solar energy to provide safe, clean water through desalination exactly in the regions, in the arid regions that need it. And this leads me to the most difficult slide and the most difficult 2 minutes of this presentation, which is the difference between quantity and quality of energy. And I usually, with my students, I use an analogy, which is when I was young in Italy, there were always annoying kids going around and asking this stupid, silly question. What weighs more, 1 kilogram of gold or 1 kilogram of cotton? Okay, the answer is, of course, they weigh the same because it's 1 kilogram and 1 kilogram, right? Okay, so let's imagine this weight is the energy. So, and the gold is electricity, and cotton is solar energy. So 1 kilowatt hours of electricity is the same quantity of 1 kilowatt hours of solar energy. All right, well, I'm telling you today that the right answer to this question is that the kilogram of gold weighs much more than the kilogram of cotton, actually. Why? Because with a kilogram of gold, you can buy tons and tons of cotton. That's the right comparison. And then you have to compare the weight of tons and tons of cotton with 1 kilogram of cotton. With 1 kilogram of cotton, you can buy no gold, so you have to compare 1 kilogram of gold with 0 kilograms of gold. So again, the gold weighs much more in terms of quality or value than cotton. So what I'm telling you is that 1 kilowatt hours of electricity is much more valuable than 1 kilowatt hours of solar energy. Now, valuable in terms of cost, so it costs much more. It's so much more difficult to produce 1 kilowatt hour of electricity rather than 1 kilowatt hours of sun. You just go outside and you take 1 kilowatt hours of sun. With electricity, you have to dig up oil, refine it, burn it, use a turbine, make electricity. Okay, in the technologies that we use today for desalination, we need high quality, very costly energy, like electricity, mechanical energy, or high temperature thermal energy. In the technologies that we are developing, the technologies of the future, we will be able to use low cost, low value in a way, low quality energy that's diffused like solar energy. Not just solar energy, but also waste heat from industrial plants. Heat is usually just discharging the environment now. We can use it to do desalination with our newest, cleanest technologies, and also geothermal energy. So, the last thing I want to, just the last 2 slides, I want to talk to you about is, so far we focused on water energy relationship. There's one other factor in the equation, that is food, and this is usually called the water food energy nexus, because there's a lot of water that's hidden inside the food that we eat. It's called virtual water, and it's the water that's used to produce food. So for example, not just the water that's inside the food, but the water that was used to produce it. So the irrigation water, the water that was needed by the people, the work to produce the food, and so on and so forth. So there are these calculations now of virtual water. So for example, we need 650 liters of water to produce 1 pound of barley. 650, actually about 2,000 of these bottles to produce 1 pound of barley. It takes about 5 tons of water to produce 1 steak. So when you go to the restaurant and eat 1 steak, you should think that you're also drinking 5 tons of water at the same time. Now, there is an opportunity to work with, by cooperation between countries, to exploit the fact that different foods need different water and different foods can be grown in different places. Maybe water-rich food should be grown more in water-rich places and vice versa, and then through trade exchange, we can exchange water through food and rebalance the whole water availability worldwide, okay? So this is a new concept. Just an example, in Italy, we export a lot of water that's hidden as virtual water in wine. In this map, you show in green the countries that are net importer of wine from Italy, and in red, the countries that are net exporter of wine to Italy. So basically, Italy, by exporting wine all over the world, is exporting also the water that's hidden inside wine that was used to produce the wine. And Italy imports water in, for example, dates. So also from the United Arab Emirates. There's water needed, a little bit, much less than in wine, to produce dates. By importing dates, Italy is importing water. So it's a difficult thing. It's an economics optimization that we should do. If we were really able to cooperate between countries, we could also make such a thing where the balance of water availability would be more balanced, again, all over the world, just by trading the right food with each other. So this brings to my conclusion. Making water available through desalination will always be expensive. No, don't let you be fooled by people that tells you that no, the desalination will be cheap in the future. It will always be expensive in terms of energy. However, it depends on the energy that we use. So the cleanest technologies that we're developing trade efficiency with sustainability. They're a little bit less efficient than the current technologies, but they are much more sustainable because they use renewable sources of energy to do desalination. Also, the other thing is that these technologies can be implemented within a large interval of complexity. What does that mean? It means that the current technologies are all high-tech technologies. So basically, they work well in centralized, large-scale plants. The newest technologies can be implemented in very simple devices, passive devices that can be used in remote areas where there's no, for example, electrical grid, or they can be implemented for centralized industrial scale plants. So there's a level of complexity that we can play with that's interesting because we need to provide water for everybody. But there's a lot of research and technology transfer that we need to do still, and that's what we're working on. We're not the only one, there's many people working on it, but in our university we're specifically focusing on these technologies that can couple renewable energy with water separation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Alberto Tiraferri. It was a very, very interesting speech. Thank you also for switching to contemporary and to environment, which is so important for us.
Thank you, Alberto. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I will be standing here. Well, when I was called by Sister Intisar to join this seminar, it was a bit of a challenge for me, but I decided to challenge myself. And I would like to thank my wife, who really was patient for the past 3-4 days, because I wasn't almost sleeping, just to put this very small presentation together. It's not my field, but I think what my brother Giovanni put here is something that really brings culture, knowledge, and science together. And I would like to really start with Alberto. Alberto finished. You have seen in the presentation of Professor Alberto that it's just to produce very little amount of food, little amount of meat, little amount of milk, you need millions of cubic meters of water. So water has a value, and this value must be recognized, and this value must be maintained within our culture, within our community, with principles that we should stand firm in applying them. And I think Giovanni was very courageous to put that theme together. I don't think there are so many people putting that theme together, because it needs a lot of effort, a lot of energy. I really thank you, Giovanni, for that, and for giving me that chance today to be here. Let me just jump. So I'm using the title, Drop by Drop Life, in all my presentation, because I think this is a very, very inspiring title. It looks long, but it's still very inspiring. I started looking at the values. So my presentation is around values, mainly. What are the values of Islam around water? And how can these values really contribute to the good of humankind? The Prophet, the first thing that he started teaching people is this. There are values that the Prophet was sent to uphold and to complement. And this is the theme of my presentation today. The Holy Quran speaks about water, and there is no big arguments between Muslim scholars that water is one of the two first things, if not the first thing, that Allah has created. There is a bit of difference in opinion whether the crown of God, the throne of God, or the water, but definitely water is one of those two things. And then the pen that was created to write the deeds of people. And Allah Azza wa Jal specify not only that water is the first thing that He created, everything, every life is around water. There are so many verses in Quran, and I decided to choose only one reference in each slide, because the topic is just to come into this, Islam and art and water, just to make sure that the theme was so brilliantly chosen that it is really combining all the efforts that we are here to really meet together. Allah in the Quran speaks about how water comes and is falling from the sky to the ground. You know, I didn't pay too much attention to this. It says winds and not wind in Arabic. And then I saw some scholars in very old time talking about so many different type of winds that I have never even ever read in even technological books. And then we speak about water coming down in order to revive the earth, a dead earth to be revived. Human, animals, and all the living things that are part of our lives. And then I came across water equity in Islam. What does water equity and how the values of our Islamic teaching really looks at water equity? And I came across one of the marvelous saying of the Prophet. People are partners in three things: water, pasture, and fire. If you want to translate it into today's sustainability words, water, food, and energy. So you cannot uphold water for yourself. Look at the last verses. Suppose you have a farm and you dig a well. That you have spent money to dig that well. Do you have the right to uphold the water from people? The Prophet says, it is forbidden to you to uphold that water from an animal wishing to drink. So how come from the people? So even animals, when we look at the benefit of sharing water, it is shared not only between humans, it is shared also between humans and animals. This is what the Prophet says: if you have a superfluous water, if you have an excess water, and the travelers are passing by, that water does not belong to you anymore. It belongs to the travelers. Much more about water equity is water supply. How Islam is looking to providing water supply to people. Amazingly, God, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, praises his prophet Moses in the Quran just for helping two needy women to water their cattle and their sheep. Allah praises and forgives two mistaken women. You know why? Because she saw a dog that is thirsty and she watered that dog. It's that much the value of water, of providing water. This is why the Prophet concluded the story by saying, the most rewarding act of charity you might ever think about is supply of water, is water supply. And this is why in UAE in particular, all charity organizations are putting water supply as one of the major contributions to the world, not only to UAE, to the world, I would say. Please look at how many wells the UAE has produced to many of our brother neighboring countries. Please look at how many dams the UAE has built in many of our neighboring countries. So this is one of the objectives that is at the core of Sharjah municipality water. Sharjah, and I would say UAE, in 2007, 100% of the population is receiving water at their doors. So I would say, can you imagine those managers, those people who are in charge of water in this country, how much benefit and how much rewards they can get from God, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala? If watering a dog would take you to paradise, then watering a whole population, what would be the reward of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala? So this is the ethics that really inside the deeper I look into, the more I got really fascinated by the way the water is managed. Of course, in Sharjah alone, there are 3,500 kilometers of pipeline to bring water to every single corner of the city. We are producing about 90 million imperial gallon, that is about 400 million cubic meters a day. There are, Giovanni spoke about, Alberto mentioned very important matter of the amount of water that is used by human. The average in the world is 170, the best maybe 300. In UAE, we are even more than Italy. In Italy, he mentioned 400, about 420, and we are in 550. So our governments in all Emirates are working hardly really to bring that into more sustainable way. Water is not an easy matter. It's not easy. You know, when you're speaking about 400 million cubic meter a day, you can say it, but it's not easy to make it happen. To do this, the UAE uses both conventional surface water, fallage springs and groundwater, and uses non-conventional, like the one that was presented by Giovanni, by Alberto, the desalination and the treated wastewater. Of course, UAE is also leader in cloud seeding. We are sending planes every day. If we see a cloud, cloud rising up, then you will see a plane going up to seed the cloud in order to improve the rain in our country, because we are really scarce in terms of water resources. But when I was looking at, I was a bit, not only when we speak about water management, sustainability, I think, and it is time to really look at what our ancestors were doing. I was very surprised to see that water management within the UAE has already started hundreds of years ago. For instance, because my presentation is a bit long, this is a fallage, the small ground river, or the groundwater that is brought to people through fallage for irrigation. You know what they have? They have the fallage expert that uses the stars' movement and impact of shadow to decide the ratio of each one and how much water goes to each and every single farm. Why aren't we doing that? Why are we really forgetting that so valuable ethical matters? You go to the next, for example, ponding water and harvesting water. Allah Azza wa Jal speaks about the importance of water that comes down from the sky. And I was really surprised how our scholars were really taking into one word. We've sent water from the sky in measure. So it's not any amount, it's a measured amount. And this measured amount, it means what? It means we are sending it in a measure. It's your turn to keep it. It's your turn to preserve it. It's your turn to make it useful and valuable for yourself. The measure differs from one country to country. Alberto just mentioned that 93% of the water in Italy or in Europe is used from fresh water. We don't have that luxury in United Arab Emirates. It's only 30% that can be used from our fresh groundwater. The rest is, I think Alberto's presentation gave you the right index and how much effort our country is really putting into desalination and how much money we are putting in that. Of course, groundwater, but groundwater is the depletion of groundwater is a global problem that should be addressed when we are really working together. Of course, another non-conventional water resources in Sharjah is desalination. We have 3 technologies that are in place, the multi-stage flash distillation, which will be finished a few years from now, because we are now coming into a very high river osmosis technology and multi-effect distillation. The University of Sharjah is a partner with the SIWA, the Sharjah Water Electricity, in many of these projects. The other maybe point that I was really impressed about is water conservation. I will not read the whole slide. I will just stop in one. To the Prophet, sawing his companion taking wudu, taking ablution, and starting to prepare for his prayer, and wasting water. The Prophet told him, stop wasting water. Then the companion was very, Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu was really surprised. Am I wasting water? I'm preparing myself for God. Am I wasting water? He said, the Prophet simply answered, yes, even if you are taking wudu next to a running river. Even if you are next to a running river, you should only take the amount of water from that river. That would be enough for you to take wudu and to make your bathing. Why? Because water is not for us. Water is for that little fish in that river. Water is for that little grass in that river. Is not for us. It's for everybody. It's a shared value. It's a shared golden, precious gift from Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. And you can read more in Quran about that. So there are so many actions, because when we look at water conservation in Islam and value of Islam, it's good to know, are we really practicing this, and how much our country is really doing into that. Of course, in Sharjah, the waste, the leak in Alberto showed also that in Italy we have the same problem. There is a leak in the network, many water is wasted, so we are producing 400 million cubic meter, and 40% of that water is lost. Yeah, the Sharjah municipality, the Sharjah Water Authority, by 2030 or 2030, our objective is to minimize the waste by 10, to make it no more than 10%. And this is really, Alberto knows what does it mean. It means a lot. Bringing, Algeria, my country, is 40%. Now UAE is 30%. Bringing to 10% means that there is a challenge ahead, means that people who are in charge of water resources in our country are putting the challenge far beyond any expectation. And this is how we improve. This, if you don't put a very big objective and scenario in front of you, you won't never reach that. The other very interesting way of saving water is a smart water management system. And this is a small device that you put in your house, in the tap, and then you set it. If you spend, let's say that I will not allow myself to spend more than 300 liters a day. Then you just set this small device to 300 liters. If it comes to 300 liters, it will beep and stop the water at home, just to give you warning. Be careful, you are wasting too much water. And last year, I have installed at the University of Sharjah, with the help of the authority, with the SIWA, Sharjah Water, and I have installed about 7 pilot devices in the University of Sharjah, and this is the first and the only university in the Gulf, maybe in MENA region, that is using smart meters to control water inside the university. And also using water efficiency devices, and this is also something that we all have to do. I'm in the coordinator at the university and have worked to change all the water tabs at the university to make them smart water tabs. Means water tabs that reduces, I think, Dr. Mundir, Dr. You have seen that we have changed many of the tabs at the university just to make a little contribution. I'm not here, professor, and go and teach my kids and tell them, be careful, water is precious, and I'm doing nothing. So we are really bringing that with the help, of course, with the help of our marvelous people at the Sharjah Water Authority. I will skip this. Of course, I'm not really an expert in water in Islamic architectures, but my colleague, Professor Zaki Aslan is here. My colleagues from the University of Sharjah here. If you have questions, they can also help to answer and make a debate out of that. But what I found interesting is that most of the Islamic architecture is around these verses of the Quran, where Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala speaks about the house in the garden, and your house in the garden would have a river that is passing beneath it. And then there are 4 rivers, one of fresh, clean water, the other of milk, and the other one of honey, and the 4th one of the, what was that? Water, milk, honey, and wine. Yes, fresh wine. Fresh Muslim does not drink wine, but you will enjoy drinking wine in the paradise from these rivers. And I think what Giovanni did I saw Sister Intisar took me to the show. You know that carpet where you start looking at the gardens? I think that was a marvelous idea, because when we come to like a museum and look at art, and with water and art, we don't think about, I myself would never thought to put a carpet in there. But I think the choice of putting a carpet that basically was inspired by this verse. And I'm sure you know Qasr al-Hamra in Granada, Spain. This is one of the most historical living Islamic architecture with the pond at the middle, and then with the Ada, you can stop me because I'm so excited when I was preparing that. So. And this is the 4 rivers. These are the four rivers, 1, 2, 3, 4, to mimic the verses of the Quran. It just inspiration from that verses. And of course, water goes from river to a very high level. You can see that the palace of Al-Hamra is at the top of a mountain, so you are bringing water from a river to up, so it needs a very advanced technology like multi-stage reservoirs and so on. I don't want to go into that details. Then the last thing I have saw actually I added this when I visited the exhibition, and I asked my colleague, Professor Masoud, the director of our Islamic and Cultural Center at the University of Sharjah, and surprisingly I found him have written a big article about Hammam in Islam. And so he sent me the article and just put some few concepts here. But what is interesting is that the word Hammam or SPI in Islam has grown because of the obligation on every adult to take a bath, especially in Friday. So for going into Friday prayer, adults are required to take a bath. So Hammam started to be an annex of mosque, so that people can go to the mosque, take bath, and then enter to the mosque. It's very important. Why? because unlike other prayers where you have only few people in the mosque, Friday prayer, the mosque is full of people. So people are coming all together. And there is one very important teaching in Islam, that the angels doesn't like bad smell. So as a human doesn't like a bad smell, angels doesn't like bad smell. So we are required to take a bath, then go to the mosque. And this created the knowledge of Hammam. And this is I saw my brother Masoud bringing what is the Hammam, how do you enter, what do you do? And then I found Giovanni and his team in Intisar and all our great people in this museum have really mimicked that stages, and I really invite you to do that. One piece of art that Giovanni mentioned is those water filters. Those water filters that are, I think, according to the color, maybe silt clay. I'm not sure. I'm not an archaeologist, but it could be silt clay for the water filtering. Just for your good knowledge, at the University of Sharjah, we are working in producing a new membrane using clay, local clay from archaeological sites in Sharjah. Well. I hope my presentation has brought little of collaboration to what have been said, and I hope that we can continue. And it's a hope. I visited the museum a few times, long time ago, and I think this theme should stay in the museum. In a way or another. I'm sure it's very difficult to keep the whole items within the museum, but I think this idea, this beautiful act from the museum and this collaboration should stay as a sign of union, as a sign of cooperation, as a sign of teaching for all of us. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Professor Tarek. Reflecting also the wisdom of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So thank you very, very much for this. Now time runs, so I would open the Q&A session. Maybe we could start from public in presence.
Well, thank you very much for this interesting session. I enjoyed actually listening to the three colleagues. And thanks to the SMA for organizing the exhibition as well as this session aside. I was actually, although I was listening carefully and enjoying the different parts that has been covered today, different three parts. The first was almost to the exhibition. The second was pure science. And the third, from Islamic point of view, how Islam is dealing with water and the value of water. Maybe I was waiting to hear more about the human innovation over periods dealing with water from early periods. And maybe I can add something on this, knowing that the settlements, the human was hunter and gatherer. And when was starting to settle, once He valued the water and the needs for agriculture, and that was the settlements on the what's called the Neolithic period, about 8,000 BC. And started to deal with water as a value for his daily life activities. Even in certain sites like one in Jordan called Basta in the north of Jordan, humans started to deal with the negative impacts of the flushing of water coming from mountains by creating tunnels beneath the houses. Then going ahead to the early Bronze Age, about 3000 BC, the first dam in the history known is there in the desert between Jordan and Iraq, called Jawa, the first dam. So this is a reflection of the human innovation, how he was treating the need for collecting and harvesting water. Going ahead, look to the rocky site like Petra, how they innovated cistern systems within the rock and collected water to cover their daily life activities over the year, from one winter to the next. Going ahead, look to the Romans, and here I have to talk from structural point of view, actually. You know, the arch, the shape of the arch, we see the arch, but the structure or the function of the arch from structural point of view, water is the reason, because they have to find structural elements to bring water from faraway places to Rome, and they innovated what's called aqueducts. They brought water from hundreds of kilometers far away from Rome to bring water. And from there, you know, we started to know the arch, and we started to use the arch and the function of the arch. And actually the arch, from structural point of view, it solves so many problems known before that could not be used or could not be known to be used in architecture. Going ahead, look to the baptism of Jesus. It was in water in the holy river Jordan. Going ahead, also as Dr. Tariq mentioned, how water was treated as a source of life. So and the baths, you know, the baths known before Islam, but later on in Islam it has different meaning in terms of tahara and pollution, and so this is just a short brief about the value of water and how it was reflected as a human innovation over period, to be just added to this very much valuable session of today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this really insightful introduction about the history of water. Actually, because of time, Jawada was one of the things that has impressed me when I was preparing this presentation. It's part of my slides, but because of time, I skipped it. Just for everybody to know, Jawada Dam is something that we really have to really look at and really study in terms of history. I was impressed to read that it was capturing 1.1 million cubic meter of water. So it's a huge. And also there is the Egyptian dam, Safa, in Egypt also. it's one of the historical dams that should be really studied. It's only ruins now, but I think this is very important to bring back. Also, the irrigation system. The irrigation system in Egypt, which is the radial irrigation system, radial from the center, then they start irrigating the surrounding farm. And then in the counterpart in Baghdad, that was linear irrigation systems. And this dates back to 3000 BC. It's so many things that really we have to really relook, because I think there is a lot of inspiration from that. Thank you very much for bringing this to our attention. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for this very interesting presentation. In fact, I really enjoyed the 3 presentations in addition to the beautiful exhibition. I have 3 points to make. The first one, I wanted really to congratulate the Museums Authority here in Sharjah, together with the Italian partners, for the choice of the title of the exhibition, Drop by Drop, because I think this there is a message that combines the presentations that you have all together. And I think this is really important, and I don't know how long the exhibition will continue, 11th of December I see here. I think the message that also Alberto was trying to convey together with Professor Brabtin, built on what Dr. Giovanni started, is really important in that direction, because I think there is a need nowadays, especially in places like here in the Middle East, to look at the value, as Dr. Brabtin mentioned, the ethics also of how we save water, how we conserve water, etc. So this title is really, really important. So thank you very much for thinking. I think this did not come all of a sudden. I'm sure there was a thought behind it. The second point I wanted to make is related to how it is important to learn from the past. We have a lot of objects in the exhibition, a lot of meanings of how water was used in Islam, in Islamic art, and in architecture. In fact, water, if I'm an architect, and you know, when we study architecture and Islamic architecture, water is really one important element. Dr. Mrabtin showed Al-Hamra and how even the rationality of using water in the design and in the art and the architecture. So this is quite important to really look into how we learn from the past, how we learn in the Islamic period, and perhaps, as Dr. Munder mentioned, this was in fact learning from previous or former civilizations of the development of the Hammam, how we used water in the Falaj. The Falaj system is amazing, and Giovanni, you mentioned also the palm tree. And this management of water systems is really important, and how we should inspire from, learn from as societies, you know, living in modern times, and how we can learn from the past. So this is my second point. The third point I wanted really to see, it's a question perhaps, out of all this discussion, I am sure this exhibition will bring you know, some awareness, some education to the people, especially living in this part of the world, how we could maybe raise the awareness about these ideas of conserving water, about learning from the past, and learning from the art and the architecture and how water was used in Islam. So I don't know, this is the last question I have. Maybe the Museums Authority or you could have ideas to see how the education, perhaps department, I met Alia this morning, I don't know if she's here, how that will be taken forward to convey certain messages to people, because I think this exhibition is really important from that point of view. There's a strong message, and I think it's really important to highlight and utilize. Thank you.
I would like to comment really briefly, following the comments from both of you, that obviously I work on innovation technologies. I'm a hard engineer, but usually, most of the times I would say, innovation comes from really rediscovering things that people were already doing. So learning from the past and adapting it and maybe optimizing it as a modern technology. That's one thing, so learning from the past. And the other thing that we're doing that's also very interesting is discovering what nature is already doing. So learning from nature. For example, mangroves, they work in really high salinity water, and they're really able to separate water from salt really neatly. And we are learning a lot from nature and trying to take these techniques, these methods that really evolved organisms are already doing, and trying to adapt it in our lab, and then in our pilot scale, and then in our industrial scale water treatment units. Because again, most of the times, innovation is just learning from the past and learning from nature.
Just one thing. When we look at water management, I missed to show my conclusion. I wrote in my conclusion that water managers and donor organization must start support funding on project that puts the value of culture and the value of religion into today's water management practice. I'm saying that because I came across one very beautiful story of the Prophet. Two companions fighted against water. One of them came and complained to the Prophet. And the second one, can you please reduce a bit? And the Prophet ﷺ gave the right to the second one. The first companion who started complaining said, "Are you giving him the right to use water because he is your nephew?" He was the son of the aunt of the Prophet ﷺ. "Are you giving him the right to use water because he is the son of your aunt?" The Prophet, of course, with his wisdom, just slowed out the discussion, and then turned it out to his nephew and said, "You have the right. Water in a river is shared and divided from the top to the down. So the one who is having a farm higher level have the first right to water his water." And he started putting regulations on that. And then he said, "You do not have the right to store water above your hill. So if you are watering and water comes to your hill, you have to stop and let water go to your neighboring farms." So this kind of teaching, now people are fighting against dams. Sorry. So there are many political discussions around dams, big dams, and how to fill a dam, how not to fill a dam. The discussion is very simple. This discussion is very simple to solve. You don't have the right to fill the water more than your hill because other peoples do share water. And I think what you have brought, Professor Aslan, is very, very important to really come back to it and either integrate it in our educational system with innovation and technology, because it's part of it. I do have in my slides, for each chapter I teach history, but it's not enough, because our little young people are bored from history. So I think we have to change, as Dr. Mundir said, we have to change it into practice, into something that really incite our generations to really look at it from a practical point of view, as Alberto mentioned, combining the nature, how the nature works, and how the culture looks at this nature, and the way we are professional managing our water resources. Thank you very much.
If I may just steal the mic since it's here for a minute, and thank obviously our speakers for the wonderful contributions this morning and very, very insightful. And as already mentioned by Dr. Zaki and others, that they sort of complemented each other very nicely, and we had this nice combination of looking at the exhibition itself, but then expanding out into more scientific conversations and also historical contributions. And I maybe just want to quickly answer the question about how we would like to raise awareness with the exhibition. Not that I know exactly how to do that, but what we're aiming to do, what we're trying to do with this exhibition and with various other exhibitions and events that we put up at the museum is to utilize the opportunity to then talk to audiences and particularly youth about how this may impact our personal daily lives. So a lot of people would usually think that a historical exhibition is just nice to look at. You know, these are wonderful objects, they look very nice. Oh wow, they really did that, great, you know, but then what does that mean for me? And there are various examples, and Professor Giovanni knows much better than I do. There are various examples that can be directly linked to our daily life, starting with, for example, the water filters, you know. What does that mean for, what do we use? You can just raise the question of what do we use today to filter our water, and then there's a whole conversation that comes out of that. There are different uses of areas and spaces architecturally, particularly in the garden area. You know, go out into your backyard. What does your backyard look like today, and how does that impact you, your use of your space and your environment in relation to that? So there are many questions that can be raised, and that's what our education, hopefully our education team tries to do with activities in the galleries, with workshops and talks and so forth. So to pick out elements of the exhibition that are aesthetically beautiful to look at, that have historical meaning, and try to link them to us. And then that's the role where, you know, universities and schools comes in, because that's what they teach on a daily basis. So I guess what I'm trying to say is it's an available tool that we invite professors and teachers and the audiences to utilize. So if schools and universities feel that this is something that directly links into their teachings, it's an added resource, and it's here for 6 months. So we'd love to use it in that way to raise awareness. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's what we're trying to do.
In fact, thank you very much. No, that explains very well. But in fact, I just wanted to add one little thing, because what Dr. Alberto also mentioned is the environmental dimension, and how also I mean, of course, I talked about the past, the Islam and the ethics, etc., which are really important. But maybe I failed to mention that it is really important of this environmental awareness as well, in terms of the energy. For example, the calculations you made comparing, you know, solar energy to use of electricity for desalination is really, really amazing too. So I think there is this environmental dimension, I think, which is really at the heart of what we learn in terms of innovation through the history, through Islam, and also how we plan for the future.
Thank you. And then again, while I have the mic, I had a question for Professor Alberto, if I may, without taking up other people's time. But I'm really interested in the concept that you mentioned in your presentation about this economic sort of equation for sharing or trading water within other items, like exporting dates and so forth, and importing it. And if you can elaborate on that a little bit more, and whether that is actually something that's currently happening, or it's just a thought that will develop in the future. So does that come into our measurement of water at the moment? Or can you elaborate on that? Thank you.
We are not using this today. This is a concept that academia has been discussing for maybe 10 years, not more. This virtual water, it's called virtual water concept. And there are now studies that are coming out on trying to optimize the water balance by trading different goods, mostly liquid food and also solid food. But I would say that as of today, this is not even remotely considered by our governments or by, it's still something, it's a seed. It's a seed that hopefully will be used to also for deciding our policies in the future. As I mentioned in the presentation, in general, I think water-rich countries should grow water-rich food, so food that needs a lot of water should be grown only in water-rich countries, and vice versa, water-poor countries can and should grow food that needs a little bit less water. And of course, with innovation, we'll be able to use less and less water to grow the same food, which is something also that's, we are innovating as humanity. We as human populations are innovating in that. There's a problem also, it's not a problem, but there's also an issue with culture, because populations have grown some certain foods in history, so we should respect that. We shouldn't tell people what they should grow or not grow, really, like, as an imposition. But I also think that culture evolves, with the times, and with the environment changing, culture should also a little bit adapt and change and evolve with it, and take into account these issues in the future.
Thank you very much to all of you, also to the colleagues in the public. I think that we are going to close because it's time to close. So thank you very much to all of you. We had so many inputs in this great conversation. I'm so happy to have contributed from my little side. So thank you so much to all. Hoping to go on in this conversation in the future, and that this beautiful and fruitful cooperation between Italy and UAE could go on well. Thank you.